wanted everyone to know that this presentation was originally designed for a 2 to 3 hour workshop. So at some points, I'll just skip through different slides and you can just look at the art. And I had to cut out a portion of it, so it's more of a abridged version of my original presentation. But I might do the longer version at another time, and I'll let everyone know. And I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. The moment of truth. Okay, can you see that?
No.
No, okay. Moment of truth did not work. All right, hold on 1 second. Um,
Okay.
okay. Now can you see it?
Yes, ma'am. We can see it.
Oh, beautiful. Okay. So we are going to go ahead and get started. And first of all, we already touched on what Memento Mori is. It literally means remember you will die. And the whole intention of them is to serve as artful reminders that we will die and that our death is inevitable and life is precious. And they are invitations to contemplate our mortality and the cycles of birth, rebirth, aging, and decay. They can also be a means to work through our fears and anxieties and explore our spirituality and thoughts on how we would like to die when the time comes. So I started focusing on this because I want to help normalize the death conversation. And I'm an artist and I love history. And I love how the intersection of mythology and psychology and death-related subjects play together. So this is also a great way for us to share our mortality together and to honor the beauty inherent in our life's many cycles. So we're going to start with the Western origins of Memento Mori, and we'll move all the way through to contemporary times. We'll cover the dance of death, the Grim Reaper, the influence of the plague, death and eros, and some church-related items, and the Victorian cult of mourning. So I just really love this quote from Bell Hooks. Death is with you all the time. You get deeper in it as you move towards it, but it's not unfamiliar to you. It's always been there. So what becomes unfamiliar to you when you pass away from the moment is really life. So I actually came across this Memento Mori on my trip to Napoli in September. And this is the oldest one I've found either through books or through my visits to museums. And this one was created in mid-1st century BCE. And it depicts the allegory of death, which levels the distinctions between human beings. And it talks about the different representations, about the butterfly as the soul, and it's on the wheel of fortune, which is the rise and fall of fate and life itself. And then a lot of the themes within the Memento Mori in medieval times was that it comes for you no matter what your circumstances in life are. So you'll often see depictions of wealth or poverty. So in this one, there's the poverty represented on the right with the stick, beggar's stick, and the cloak. And then on the left, the purple and the crown. And it's kind of hard to see because it's very old, but it was really beautiful in person. And so the majority of what I've found in my research so far starts around the time of the plague in the 13th and 14th century. And there was so much death happening then, and according to history, it wiped out 1 to 2/3 of the population in Europe alone. and they estimate around 28 million people died. And I didn't realize it traveled through fleas and rats until I researched this. So that was interesting to me. But that's when you begin to see a huge rise in death iconography and the triumph of death motif and the Grim Reaper arrived during this time. So the Grim Reaper we're all familiar with, that has the skeletal figure with the hood and the robe and the Sith. So the Sith represents we reap what we sow, in this case, coming to reap your soul, plucked from the earth just like a harvest would be. And the hood represents religious figures conducting funeral services. So this is one of the first representations of the Grim Reaper, and it's from Mexico in a convent. And we'll see more of the Grim Reaper, and the Grim Reaper appears in a lot of triumphs of death. And one of the most famous ones is this one by Peter Bruegel the Elder in 1562. And this was painted long after the event of the original Black Death. And he depicted this as the personification of the battle between life and death. And this is a popular motif of death winning the battle against humanity. Human skeletons and humans to their deaths, as well as human by digging up graves to show the unpleasant reality disease brings to civilization. And this is still very popular to this day, this painting. This one is one of my favorites, The Last Judgment by Bosch. And I have a whole book about this artist, and he's just amazing. And a lot of contemporary people haven't been able to achieve what he did at that time. It's just an array of scenes of people in different circumstances and a lot of destruction. And then this is another triumph of death, and it's combined with the dance of death, and that's what we're going to go over next. And the dance macabre, or the dance of the dead, was another popular motif of medieval art. In this work from the Italian painter Burgess, people of all walks of life are dancing with the skeletons for the Queen of Death, who stands at the top of the world, holding two scrolls. One of the coffins holds the body of the Pope, who just died, and an emperor, and then underneath the Queen of the Dead, they are begging for mercy as they shower her with gifts and money, but the Queen of Death will take who and what she pleases. This was rather tongue-in-cheek back in the day because people had more of a sense of humor around death. Here's another one by Hieronymus Bosch, and it's called The Death and the Miser. So these are two that I found, and there was really no description about either of these, but I thought they were interesting. On the left hand is, the title is Alchemy, and then towards the bottom right, it doesn't even have an artist, but it's around the same time period. And I guess I can open up the floor for any questions or comments at this time. And I'm curious if anyone has any thoughts about what they see in these drawings.
Yeah, so you'll have to unmute if you want to talk. I think it's funny. Often hospice is referred to as the Grim Reaper because we show up and they die.
Yeah.
But I don't know. This is pretty crazy.
I have really no idea, but when I did my workshop last year with this, somebody had a really, I can't remember what they said, but it seemed to be, it made sense at the time. But to me, it looks like a crocodile, so I'm just not really sure what's going on there. But I also think the one at the bottom there, to me, it seems like they're the skeletons outside of the globe are like almost like in another realm, a heavenly realm of some kind, and they're looking at people, that are getting ready to pass on. But
Yeah.
I'll keep moving if no one has any other thoughts on that.
What I just want is, this is Michelle. Um, we're talking about death, and here we are in 2025. And I look at these and I say, this has been on people's mind,
Yeah.
since Lassie was a pup. I mean, it's just, when you look at these and you see where people were, I mean, people here are there now. You know what I mean? It's just, yeah. Anyway,
Always,
Definitely connects us through time, the
yeah,
the human species. It's like we're so connected, and I feel like people are talking more about death now, but there was a period of time where everything kind of went underground. But it seems back then it was really on people's mind because,
yeah,
they were dealing with so many dangers all the time, and
yeah, yeah,
yeah, a lot more death early on in life. And
yeah.
yeah,
Anyway, sorry, that's just what struck me.
no, I really appreciate your comment. Thank you. It's so true. So this is the next thing that I thought was really cool that I found in my research is the Ars Moriendi, which is Memento Mori as text. And people would carry around guides on giving people their last rites and how to take care of people when they were like sort of what Beverly does, when she gives her talk. It would be written down like, this is what they're gonna go through these stages of dying, and these are the things you can read to them, religious rites and or other kinds of prayers or poems that would help ease their pain and give them comfort, because they didn't have time to get to a priest because they would die so fast, during the plague. So they called them paper priests, and people would carry these around with them. And it says the original version had 6 chapters and was written in German. So I think that's a pretty cool thing that could be translated to modern times somehow. And I feel like we're all a part of that movement right now of like teaching about the art of dying and dying well and being there for people during the end of life.
seems like back then they needed death doulas.
Yes, and it was almost like, here, you're a death doula now. Here's the little instruction book, and
Yeah, here's your Ars Moriendi. Go
yes,
forth. Yeah,
yes, go forth and
teach.
yes, and pay. I thought it was kind of cool, paper priest. I like that.
Yeah.
So the next subject is the dancing with death, or the dance macabre. And this is meant to inspire contemplation and fear, not empathy. Death can come at any stage of life or level of privilege is the point of these. And they first appeared in paintings and frescoes on church walls and graveyards. And the first well-known one was in 1424 on the wall of a charnel house, which was a vault for storing bones. And I can't speak French, but it was in Paris. And many variations and reproductions have been made since then. And in the 15th century, the maiden and sex theme in the Dance of Death became very popular, especially in Germany, and we'll see more of those later. From playful to cautionary, comical to serious, the Dance of Death theme has run throughout art for at least 600 years. So, again, the origins were around the time of the plague in 1439. And The first famous one is from the Council of Basel. And this is a picture of a very faint one that was on a fresco in Valencia, Spain, I believe. Hans Holbein's Dance of Death was in 1523, and these were from wood blocks, and these were focusing on the everyday lives of the people pictured here. You have the farmer and the astrologer and the king. And they usually would start from, I believe it was from left to right. So they would start with the most powerful and wealthy on the left, and then they would depict people at all levels of class and society and careers, ending at the most poverty and sickness levels. Here you see a chambermaid and a housekeeper dancing with death, and this is in Paris from 1485. Oh, here's a very, whoops. Here's a very large one. You can see many different scenes.
So Courtney, what do you think the dance of death meant? Was it like death is always with us, and so we dance with it through our daily lives? It's because the skeleton is dancing with each person.
It's what you said, just what you said. It's like it intrudes on our daily lives. So it's always dancing with us throughout life, as we're going about our daily activities. And I think I'm not exactly sure why they called it Dance of Death, but it appeared like the figures were dancing together. So I think it was just a poetic expression of like, you never know when your time might come, and it doesn't matter your wealth or your power or your privilege won't save you, because it comes for all of us. So I think they just meant it as a turn of phrase, but it's probably worth mentioning that there was a dancing mania or dancing plague around that time, and it was called choreomania. And they often attribute that to why it got its name, the Dance of Death.
Would you say that again, what the name was?
It's called choreomania, and it was a dancing mania or dancing plague. And they said that they think that's what attributed the name to Dance Macabre, Dance of Death. Because people would literally dance to death, and they called it a dancing mania. And I don't know much about it, but that was like one of the theories about it. This is a Japanese one that I found particularly lovely, and this was actually from a political caricaturist. So this is, now we're getting into the 16th and into the 21st century. And I guess that became more sexy during that time. So
Romeo and Juliet. Ah, there we are.
yes. And it's always with a woman, you don't ever see that's the Grim Reaper figure hanging out with a man. But here's some famous ones. I'll just like go through them. This one became very famous because it was a poster for a popular film, German film. In the film, an evil cripple forces a beautiful dancer to entice men to their deaths.
Hey, could you do me a favor and go back to the Munch one?
Yeah.
I just wanted to take a look at that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can go back at any time, and also feel free to interrupt me at any time.
I like this one too.
Yeah, this one
The
is
Egon Schill one.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. And I keep finding new pieces, but I'm like, don't add any more because there's already so many that I had to cut out.
It's almost, that one to me almost has the flavor of the claimed The Kiss, I think it was.
Oh, what? I'm sorry, this one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they were around the same era.
Were they?
I
Okay.
think so. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But I really like this artist, and I like how they depicted the woman as not just like a sexual object, you know, and as in some of the other ones.
And she's embracing a corpse. Yeah.
Yeah, she's and she's got really strong legs. I like I like how muscular everyone. I like how they focused on that and
Yeah.
they're not so skeletal because like in a lot of the other ones that it's either like a skeleton with a very voluptuous woman, you know. Um, so I like and this is from a modern artist who's from Mexico. Joseph Beuys was a German artist, and he was also a well, I want to say a little bit more about this person. They are a self-taught illustrator and tattoo artist born in Mexico City in 1972. And he still resides in Oaxaca and is considered one of Mexico's most important contemporary artists. He intersects tattoo art, indigenous designs, vintage postcards, movie posters, and photographs with iconic figures in popular Mexican culture. And his art has been exhibited all over the world.
Whoa.
Yeah. She's also a very famous performance artist. See, did I skip one? No. All right, well, that is for, we're moving on to Vanitas, which is vanity. It's a genre of art which uses symbolism to show the transience of life, the futility of pleasure and death, and it uses certain symbology to represent different aspects of this worldly life that we're living. Paul Cézanne, who I'm sure you all know about, he did a lot of these still lifes, and they would set them up and paint them. And the skulls, clocks, burning candles, and flowers often made appearances to represent the transience of life. And the soap bubbles were also popular. And then they would have different symbols for vanity and wealth. I really like this one. And it has this bubbles in it, which I appreciate, the lightheartedness. This one was set up as one of the first photographs. Then we move on into anatomy and science and how that intersected with the Memento Mori. And I'm also going to talk a little bit about the charnel houses, the catacombs, and my trip to Napoli in September last year. So this doctor, anatomist, Frederick Ruch, he used skeletons that was kind of controversial. He was controversial at the time because he took skeletons from, you know, babies that had died or like small infants that had passed away. But it was also a way for people to learn about death and about anatomy and medical science.
He lived a long time.
So he was quite a character, and he lived a very long, colorful life. And he was sort of one of those Renaissance man because he was an artist and he did anatomy. He actually helped make progress in, I don't want to say embalming, but in a way embalming, because he had a type of embalming that he was one of the first people to try to embalm people.
Did you like pickle them? And I'm looking at those little babies on that picture.
Yes, no, he didn't pickle them. he came up with some kind of formula for like literally like how they embalm now.
Wow.
How they inject it into the body. These were just post-mortem. These were, you know, just the fetuses. I know what you're saying. I think that's just a drawing. Yeah, he was definitely out there for his time, especially. And these are the catacombs. There are certain cemeteries still in existence in Rome. I've been there, and in Toulouse in Sicily, where the mummified bodies of monks and laymen were placed in charnel, different from the medieval charnel of bones, because they would leave the whole body intact with all their robes and their jewelry and everything. The Neapolitan skull cult. This is where, and I learned about this a little bit when I was in Naples, but it was closed down at the time I was there for renovation, actually, so I didn't get to visit it. But a lot of the nuns and women, they would choose a skull and they would pray with it to ensure its safe passage from life to heaven, you know, in between the different realms on their way to heaven, for their safe passage of their soul. And this is an example of one of the charnel houses in England. So
Ah,
another popular theme is decomposition, where half of the person is dying and half the person is living. And the poetry of that is just like, in life there's death and in death there's life. That's how I interpret it. And that we're always aware of our mortality and the beauty of existence and the transience of our life here on earth. This person got very detailed with the decomposition factor. And this is representing the Queen Elizabeth I. Someone sent me this the other day, and I just thought it was really cool piece, because it's a box. And it made me think of, like, they said it was made by a nun or a sister, and it would be used for sacred objects.
Interesting that now thinking of this, my sister, another one of my sisters, has a painting where if you look at it one way, it's a woman painting or combing her hair, brushing her hair in front of a mirror. But it's one of those, if you look at it differently or squint or focus differently, it's a skull.
That's cool. Yeah, that's what this one kind of reminds me of, because
Yeah.
it really blends in very seamlessly.
So was iron considered just something that was impermeable, or?
That's a good question. I think so. It was very, you know, iron's considered like invincible in a way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love this slide. This is great.
Mhm.
Well, all the slides.
Well, thank you. I'm gonna keep going because I think I'm almost getting to the end. So in Japan, they focus on the 9 stages of decomposition, and they have a whole art genre, and it's still very contemporary, and it's called Kisozu. And there's different layers of it. This is a contemporary version. Joining the conversion.
wow,
These are considered good luck, actually.
wow.
Yeah.
This artist had a connection with just women. Most of it looks like it's just women, and
Isn't that like artisan, seems like even now, you know, it's women are more popularly depicted, I feel like still to this day. But I'm gonna talk a little bit about the Victorian cult of mourning because that's another age in which we really were, as a culture, we recognize death more openly, and mourning was more accepted, and grief was more part of like everyday life. And post-mortem portraiture was very popular, either through painting or photographs. And sometimes that was the only time they couldn't really afford to get portraits done. So that's kind of what started it, I think, is because they wanted to make sure they had a picture of the person before they were laid to rest. And they would spring or splurge for that because it was really important. So long exposures when taking photographs meant the dead were often seen more sharply than the living because of the lack of movement. They also there was a whole genre of hair work where they would take their beloved's hair and make ornaments out of it.
Wow.
Yeah. And there's people that still do that now. And I thought this was so interesting about how, you know, the living room used to be the death room, the funeral parlor, because people would have wakes and funerals in their home. And then after that was relegated more to the funeral home, then they became living rooms.
That's fascinating.
Like that could be a whole study in itself, you know.
Absolutely. Whoever, I'm sorry, but I mean, it's called the living room. And I never in my life thought, where's the dying room? You know,
I never thought about it either till I read about that, and I was like, wow, that's how it got its name.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Anyway, okay.
It's fascinating.
Yes.
Like I get into rabbit holes with all these different subjects sometimes. So it's nice to look at it all again and see. I always see something different every time I look at it. These were also popular for a while in the like the 19th century and early 20th century. Like, you know, don't smoke and don't do too much music. The people drinking, you know, they're gambling, watch out. War is an obvious one. That still looms large today.
Wow.
This one's scary. They're not quite ready to go yet. They're still alive. And we all know that that's where the term wake came from, right? Because that's why they had wakes, to make sure people were still where they were not still alive.
Wake up.
Yeah, exactly. This person's making art and they're coming for them. So this person I thought was interesting and he lived in Texas for a long time, but he made these calendars and he was a pharmacist, or his uncle was a pharmacist. And then he became a physician, but he was also an illustrator. And these calendars were really popular with his clients, and like, so that was a trend for a while. And he lived in Texas. Also, memorials and cemeteries can be seen as sacred sites, obviously, because they're headstones. So we're remembering people that have died. Sometimes the cemeteries were surrounded by the funeral chapels and charnel houses with all the ossuaries where they kept all the bones to make room for the new bones, for the new people. This is a very popular motif in Europe and Italy, where they have the half decomposed corpse in the churches usually. This is me in Italy in the fall, and I was just thinking about like, what is it for people that are so drawn to like bones? Because I've always been really fascinated by bones since I was a little girl. And after looking at all these schools doing this presentation, I had to look up what they were, people who love bones were called.
Osteophiles.
Osteophiles. So this is it was a school church in Naples. Sorry. Oh, that's me. I can't look at my notes with this, the way this is set up right now, but let me get to the notes on this because it's really interesting. This complex includes the upper church and a museum, and it was an opportunity to learn about the ancient cult of the souls in purgatory, which were the Fontenelle Cemetery that I showed you earlier, where the women would go and pray. This was connected to that. And in 1605, a group of nobles founded a charitable institution called Opera Pia to carry its assistance to the needy in all of the categories needed. They thought to create a place where people could pray and take care of the souls in purgatory. So they believed they had to remove their sins there before going to heaven. And this church, the schools were out in the open. Like they had altars for them. And they also had, this was a contemporary artist that made this out of coral. And this was an exhibit at the church. And I also went to Pompeii twice. So Pompeii is literally frozen in time, and there's just so much art there. And it's amazing how well preserved it is and really detailed and it's just gorgeous. There was even a loaf of bread that was covered in ash that had been preserved at the time of the volcano, the
Wow.
eruption. Yeah.
It's so fascinating when you see that people were actually just frozen where they were.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they-
It was really amazing, and I underestimated how incredible it was going to be. So we went back a second day because it's a really big city actually, and there's a lot of ground. I mean, it's a town, you know, but back then I think it would be a city.
Mhm.
This is another church, and it's in the Czech Republic, and similarly, like a monk somewhere in the 1700s or 1600s, he went on a pilgrimage to Jerusalem, and then when he came back, he brought this soil with him, and then all of a sudden, like there was like a holy church, and they just started bringing everyone's remains, and then eventually they had so many bones that they hired a famous architect, and who was it that in 1870, a talented woodcarver was given the task of creating something beautiful with all of these bones. Yeah.
Those are all bones.
Yeah, they're all bones and skulls. Oh, well, not all of it, but like all these right here.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Wow.
there's Jesus on the cross in the background. And then the headstones, of course, like New England, have a lot of symbology with them. The cherubs with the, you know, representing the immortal soul. Creating like a familiar scene at somebody's tomb to remind them of home. I thought that was really sweet.
Mm.
Roadside memorial. And then I'll just kind of blaze through these because we're getting close to 7:30. And then we can talk a little bit, and I'll stop sharing my screen so I can see everyone again. But Jose Guadalupe Posada is very famous, an important Mexican artist who dealt with a lot of death-related subjects in Memento Mori, and in somewhat comical ways at times. I thought this one was really beautiful. It's called My Funeral.
There's the butterflies again.
Yeah, the butterfly is very common theme. And it's like supposed to depict all the different emotions of.
Wonder whose head that is. I guess that's her.
I know. I thought about that too, because I was reading about it. And it's like, it's not telling me whose head this is, but maybe it's, yeah, their own. That's what I think probably. Probably it is. The surrealists were really not afraid of this subject.
Yeah.
No, they went there and they created a lot of mysticism and beauty around it, which I appreciate. I love these artists, Remedios Barro, Leonora Carrington, the one before this one. Some of my favorite artists. Whoops. This is a beautiful sculpture. Keeping away old age, keeping away old death. Very strong. Francis Bacon. That one's more political at the time in the 60s. Basquiat. This is a photographer that I really like, and I just thought this one with the vultures was really beautiful. Symbology of transformation. This was an artist I think I brought up in another one of our sessions that works with ashes or remains of people. So this is all done with remains.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And he talks about how everyone is like, there's all these unique colors and textures and
Wow.
some modern day artist. This was an exhibit I went to at the De Young Museum in San Francisco, and it was all done on black glass and etchings. And it was like her meditating on different ways that she might die. And like this is with peacefully with her cat. And then this one talks about how this is not the ideal death for her. And these are performance artists. I feel like I should get to the end here so we can talk, but I'll just get through these. Another modern day artist.
Wow.
Yeah.
Barbie funeral.
I know Barbie and myself. I don't know what that means, but that is, I got to the end. I can't believe it. I guess all that editing helped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That was awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Correct.
Yeah. I wish we had more time to talk about it, but it's a little bit overwhelming too, probably. So
It's a beautiful presentation, Courtney. Just
thank you.
beautiful. Thank you.
It's really interesting to just see how death is depicted through the ages, and it is ever present today as it was 400 years ago.
Courtney, I'm remembering your wonderful exhibit at your gallery too last year. You brought together a lot of artists to show their different interpretations of Memento Mori. It was really wonderful. Do you think you'll do another one?
Yes. I think we're all a part of that, and there's so much to talk about and to represent and express with death, going forward from now and going forward. And I feel like you had to do that in your art as well.
Where did you do that? Where did you present?
Oh, we had a show in October at the gallery where I live that my partner and I oversee and curate, and for the last 6 years. And I got a grant from the city of San Antonio to do, I called it the Memento Mori. And so I opened it up to other artists that were interested and wanted to make something of their own or already had something to show.
Where's your gallery at, Courtney?
That's what I was going to ask.
Sorry, it's on the south side, south of Southtown, and we're off of Roosevelt and Riverside, really close to the Riverside Golf Course. Yeah.
I have to leave that information with Beverly. I'd like to
Yeah,
get it.
maybe I should put it in the chat.
I'll put it in the chat, or I can email it. I'll email it to you all. If you got the
Okay.
Zoom link, you'll get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Great,
we're
thank you.
open kind of all the time because people live here and the doors are open and you can kind of walk through the gallery and look at everything. Our official hours are Monday through Saturday, 1 to 6, but it's open pretty much most of the time. So you're welcome to come anytime.
I
Thank you.
think one of the main things that I love about what you said is that you said, well, they used to have a better sense of humor about death. And I guess
Mhm.
because they all died at 35, they had to find some humor in it. But then that makes me think what Beverly said a couple of weeks ago. She said, we all know how to die. It's natural. We're all dying every day. Um, but it's kind of interesting how they used to think they used to have more fun with it, and we've turned it into this medical emergency, and you have to sign a DNR. And I guess back then they just was like, okay, it's your time, Charlie. All right, fine,
like-
woo.
Bring in the paper priest.
Exactly. It's so interesting how that's why ABODE's so important for us to make it more loving and less scary.
Right. I believe bringing humor is really important and something that I'm constantly working on. Well, I mean, I feel like I have a sense of humor, but it's just,
Yeah.
I think what you're saying is really true. And I think we all
Yeah.
could use a little bit more levity around it sometimes.
Oh my gosh, yes. We have a guest right now, Ruben, and I'm so in love with him. He's this brilliant scientist. He's only 62. And he said a couple of days ago, he says, when I die, I'm going to come back as an angel and I'm going to help everybody in this room. You've been so wonderful.
Oh yeah.
I was like,
I met him last night and he was like, why are you here? Why do you do this? And I was like, I just walked in to say hi and I was like, well, I'll tell you like what brought me to this work and everything. And he goes, I'm sorry, but you gotta come to Papa. He's like, come to Papa. And I just he was just so charming and like lovely. I feel like he got tired from entertaining everyone all day though, because there was a constant stream of people coming in to see him. Yeah.
Courtney,
thank
and
you.
art seems to take dying more lightly with more of a sense of humor. The Dia de los Muertos and everything
Mhm.
it's become more and more popular.
Yeah, I have a whole section in this about all the different holidays and Dias de los Muertos and all like different countries and cultures that celebrate in different ways. Yeah.
That should be a future Abode Academy.
Yeah, I could just take out, like put in what I took out and do that part.
Yeah.
Courtney,
Well,
do you do this every year? Do you do this lecture every year?
No, I mean, the first time I ever did it was for a small group of people live, and that was last year, like about a little bit over a year ago. And then I did it once again, and this is like my third time. And I've never done it over Zoom before, so
Yeah.
I'm getting the hang of Zoom presentation, but yeah.
I just love the fact that I was looking at the page numbers and you got up to like 170 slides. It's like, I would like to see the full Monty.
Oh yeah, I would like to do something in person again. And then I feel more comfortable like going that long over that. I'll do it on Zoom too if there are people that don't live here, but it'd be nice to do one for people in town.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You'll have to let Beverly know so she can let all of us know when that's going to be.
Okay. I will do that. Thank you. Thank you for your interest and your attention. And everything. I really appreciate it.
Well,
You.
Courtney, this was lovely. Thank you. Thank you. I learned a lot, and it really opened my eyes that death is walking beside us. And it has been for forever, right?
Yeah, it just gives you a sense of feeling connected to everything and everyone, I think.
Well, so next week is our final ABODE Academy for this year. And it's going to be called Questions That Make Us Squirm. So think about questions you have related to death and dying. And we'll have a panel here of, I can answer the medical hospice things. Edwin will be there to help us with the spiritual. We're going to have a doula there that can maybe share some of her experiences. We're going to have Gennaro, who's in the funeral business. If you have any questions about decomposition and what happens after a person dies and how the body's handled. And nothing is off limits. We're going to have fun with this. So tune in.
I'm gonna get some questions ready. I can't wait.
So thank you all for coming. And this was a wonderful presentation, Courtney. Thank you so much again. And we'll see all of you next week at 6:30. And if you're in the neighborhood, stop by ABODE and say hi. Say hello to Siobhan while you're there. Hi, Siobhan. Okay, everyone. Have a beautiful evening and a great week. And we'll see you soon. And
Thank you, Courtney.
Thank you.
I'm going to give me her information for her gallery, and I'll email it out to everyone. Okay.
Okay.
Muchas gracias.
Have a good night.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.